So the headline on this is Ryan Poles reveals Bears strategy for NFL #1 draft pick. And I said, oh, really? He did? I'm reading this now. And there's a lot of sort of preamble to it, but the quotes are the money in this from Peter King.
Yes, they are. And quite honestly, Dan, I am shocked by these quotes.
Well, and as we read them, let's just hear them first and then talk about intent. Okay. So this is Poles. I believe in building something to sustain success for a long period of time. To me, that's got to be through the draft. This is just a chance to load up this team with a bunch of opportunity and flexibility to do that. It's time for this organization. The facility and offices were just built. The new president comes in, and we think in the same innovative way, I think. We're in position to have a new stadium. Now, with this opportunity with the first pick, it feels like an opportunity to kind of heal some of the things that happened before and become a really good team. Everything feels right. Said Poles spoke softly but urgently in 50 minutes. He was supportive of quarterback Justin Fields, saying we've got to see it through in giving Fields a chance to be the team's long-term starter. It's clear he's not trading Fields, and he's not picking a quarterback high in this draft. He left little doubt the Bears will trade the first overall pick and said he's spoken to 3 teams at the Combine about a deal. He wouldn't identify them. He said he had enough conversations about a deal to know in swapping first-round picks this year, he can get a 24-1 and a 25-1 in a major package for a trade. However far down he goes in the draft this year, Poles wants to be sure he gets a blue player, his term for a premier first-rounder. See, I think that term is more than just a pick. I think a blue player is a blue player, even if he's a veteran. So without disclosing many specifics, it's clear Poles has enough information to think a trade could come long before the first round kicks off April 27th, and making it now would require a huge price. Should we do this before free agency or should we wait? He said, I don't know. That's what I've communicated to teams. I could carry this all the way until we're on the clock the night of the draft, but then there's teams that want some certainty. Because if I need a quarterback bad, should I do that now when some of these guys like Derek Carr are out there? Well, he's not out there anymore. To me, they've got to do so much more above to do it now. I'm not greedy with it, but they're going to have to go above and beyond to close the door now.
Now, that could mean, and he had brought it up at the Combine with the Bears beat reporters, that player compensation would be a part of it, where you would like to get some of that stuff done before free agency starts up, because then it gives you a better idea of where you're going to be spending your money in free agency. The very simple example would be, all right, Indianapolis, we'd really like DeForest Buckner as part of the compensation for the #1 pick. And maybe we'll let you slide on a #1 pick for 2025 if Buckner is one of the pieces that comes along with it. I'm just using it as an example to illustrate what Poles might be thinking about if he's going to do it before free agency starts.
Sure. It allows him to plug some spots on his board that he wouldn't have to sign or draft for. There's more. This is Poles on Fields. When we started to adjust and adapt to what he did well and he started running the ball a little bit, we saw a very unique and special ability and talent that can change the game. Now, the next piece in terms of being an efficient passer is what we need to get to. I've been open about that. We've talked about it with Justin. He knows. Can he be more clear-minded when he plays, where he can just play loose because he knows where he's going to go with the ball? I do think there's potential that we have something really good, and to me, you've got to see it through. So as for the market, so the best thing I heard here from a quarterback-seeking team in the top 10 was from one top club official, we're tired of the Band-Aids. And then he lines up the suitors. The aggressors are Indianapolis and Carolina. Interested parties would be Houston, possibly the Raiders, outside shot Seattle.
That tired of the Band-Aids sounds like Indy, because if you look at the quarterbacks that they've brought
tired
in.
Of Band-Aid, man.
I mean, if you just look at it after Andrew Luck, like what they've done, where it's like, oh, well, here's Phillip Rivers for a year, and here's Carson Wentz for a year, and here's Matt Ryan. Like all 3 of those guys are Band-Aids as they haven't been able to find a quarterback in the draft.
More Poles quotes. I'm blessed to be able to read people. I can feel it. There's urgency out there.
Okay.
There's pressure.
There's pressure on him.
With the 3 interested parties at the Combine, Poles said it included at least one quote that's further back than what I thought. But if I'm going to the next tier on the draft board, you're going to have to make up for that with more capital. The interesting part is having a conversation with one team, and then 1 hour later, another team texts you wanting in on the trade, and they're not afraid of what the floor of what you're asking for is. No one's going to rush me. I know I can get a 24-1 and a 25-1. You're telling me for the next 2 years I'll have 2 1s? That's either 4 really good players, or if we're cruising, we can still trade back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you believe him, or do you think he's jawboning the market? Is this a little much?
It's lying season, Dan, so I don't fully believe him.
Okay.
And the place where I don't fully where I think that he's taking advantage of the opportunity to use Peter King and everyone knowing everyone reading that column, everyone knowing who Peter King is.
You sit for an hour with Peter King, you're there for a reason.
Right.
He's not just buttonholing you in a corner of a hotel.
Yeah, I feel like this was an opportunity for him to market. Like him to market that pick. And I think that that's all right too. Like that's what this is. This is what you have to, I wrote it in Sun Times a couple weeks ago. You have to hope that your general manager is a good liar. And this is what he has to do. He's got to go out here. Oh, yeah, we totally talked to the team that's tired of Band-Aids. Well, obviously, that sounds very much like it could be Indianapolis. Oh, and we totally know that we're going to get a 24 and a 25-1. Mm-hmm. So now you're setting a price floor for what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, he said that he knows he can get that. There is some clear advertising going on.
Right. And that's unfortunately what one has to do in lying season. And I think that Ryan Poles has done an excellent job so far. I am a little bit concerned. Concerned is not the right word. I'm curious on how this plays with other teams. And it's like what we were talking about with Mully during transition. Indianapolis can play the game of, well, we might get our guy at number 4. You might. You also might not. And that, like, the certainty of moving up to number 1. Because you can say, oh, we might get our guy. Yeah, Houston might get your guy too. And Carolina might jump up and get your guy. If Arizona doesn't like what is left on the board other than the quarterbacks, they might be willing to move down a few spots and pick up some assets. The only way to assure that you're going to get the guy that you want is to move up to number 1. And now it's like, well, how do those teams feel about it? And what is it that Ryan Poles wants? In the example of Buckner, he'll be 28 when the season starts, right? He's 27 now, I think, and he'll be 28 when the season starts. That gives you a jump start on rebuilding your defensive line, which you desperately need. And that, it looks like, I don't know what the Bears think about Jalen Carter. They might think, well, we're willing to take the risk because he's a generational talent. They might also be going, nope, we don't know if he's going to be available, so we have to move on. And maybe it changes the strategy of what you do here. But it's a fascinating game of liar's poker. And I'm surprised that Poles has been this public about, but when you've got the most money in free agency and the number 1 pick, it's hard to mess it up. You know what I'm saying? Like he can play these games because they'll probably be a suitor no matter what. It's hard to mess up. So why not go out here with your chest out and say, this is what we need. This is what we're hearing. This is what we want. even if none of it's true.
Like you say, it's the fact that he gave this interview could be read in two ways. One, puffy-chested, and come to me, I'm the guy, I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to ride this out as I could take this all the way up to being on the clock.
No one rushes your boy, Ryan Poles. I don't get rushed.
And that's fun. As Bears fans, that should be fun. On the other hand, there could be an undercurrent of desperation.
Yes.
That if there really were the market that he says, there's no reason to tell Peter King about it.
That is correct.
That's what I come down to. So have fun with either way, and maybe there's no absolute on either side.
Maybe it's not binary,
right? Where you're just like, you know what, this can't hurt, could help,
right? But in the way that he talked, like even the way that he's talking about Justin Fields now is a little bit more He's a little bit more definitive at the beginning of the week at the combine. A little bit more definitive when he's talking to Peter King about this. So you can throw all of the other nonsense about him trading Justin Fields out the window, or maybe you can't.
Who knows?
Who knows?
It's lying season.
That's what it is, Dan. It's lying season.
Mirrors reflecting on mirrors.
That's right.
Yep.
And the mirror master himself, Ryan Poles, is out here like, hey, I got another guy on the other line for some white walls. So,
I'll talk to you later, Charlie.
we gotta find out what Houston wants. And I mean,
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows where I might trade that number one pick? There's so many suitors, and they all want quarterbacks, and all these quarterbacks are great.